Welcome back to another episode of my Immigrant Diary, the space where we unpack the journeys, the struggles, and the headlines that make the immigrant experience. My name is Precious.
And my name is Wale.
Great. Today we have a packed house, right? But first up, right, a major win for those looking for a plan B, mostly Americans in this case. Canada just opened its doors a lot wider for Americans with Canadian roots. For years, Canada had this first generation limit, meaning if you were born outside Canada to a Canadian parent who was also born outside Canada, you were out of luck to become a Canadian citizen. But a recent bill called Bill C2 was that has now expanded that limit. So if you can prove as an American that you have Canadian ancestry, whether your great-grandparents, your grandparents, and the like, you might already be a Canadian citizen. The story is out there, and there are millions of people applying to Canada right now to be able to attain that citizenship. So you'd be shocked. It's shocking to see that, Wally. Americans are also interested in dual citizenship.
Yes, it's fantastic, especially for Americans that have always wanted to move to Canada, and they usually have to go through some process to apply for residency, to get a job, etc. But right now, this is one of the few ways that you don't need to do all of that. So you just need to prove that you have an ancestry that is that was a Canadian citizen by 1947. From 1947 as a Canadian citizen, and for other regions of Canada, it's from 1949. So if we have a great grandfather or great grandmother that was born that was a citizen at that time, from that date, from that year on, then you can apply. But I'm surprised. I'm not surprised that Canada is doing this, because there actually a lot of Americans that are planning to move to different parts of the world. America has always been that way, but then there's this drive for talent right now all over the world. So I believe this is just one of the ways that Canada is trying to do that. And Canada is seeing the way the United States is also treating immigration, basically making every move to make sure that they get the best talents in the world. So again, I'm not surprised, but this is also fantastic news for a lot of Americans that want to move to Canada, but they don't want to go through the long process. And sometimes you just want to go there and go and start a business. It can be very challenging if you have to go through all that paperwork. Businesses are also not certain. You're not sure if it's going to succeed. But if you have a knack for business, you want to have as much room as possible. So if you are that kind of person, this is fantastic news for you. But most importantly, you have to be able to prove your heritage.
Yes, Wale. And it's interesting to see it because even America has something very similar where, I think second generation, if you cannot prove your heritage, you might lose your citizenship. America is more accommodating in this case because American law just require you to prove your heritage. If you have grandparents who are citizens of America, and your parents and even your grandparents, even if your grandparents were born abroad and you never lived abroad, your father never lived abroad, your father never lived in America, and you now as a great grandchild had never lived in America. As long as you can prove that your grandparents, I think up to great grandparents, are citizens, you can actually obtain your American citizen. So I guess maybe that's what Canada have just kind of implemented, but I think they expanded their own narrative to it's more robust in this case, which is beautiful. But I mean, I think I'm just amazed that a lot of Americans are applying.
Yes, I am surprised too, but it is. I think that's the beauty of what when you see these kinds of demand, you understand. You have a sort of understanding of how people are moving across the globe. Canada is a place that Americans are very familiar with. It's not too far away from them. The culture is different, but you can still find a lot of similarities between both cultures. So it makes sense. And they speak English too.
Awesome. Speaking of citizenship, President Trump's $1 million gold card visa program have been live since December 2025. But the guest list is not looking great. It's thin. Only one person at mid 2026, only one person have been approved so far, despite hundreds being in the queue. And there have been claims of numbers being sold, but the reality has come out. only one person has been approved. Now, the $1 million was to fast track the EB1, the EB2 visa, and it has an additional 15,000 fee. They say the vetting is the most serious in history, but it makes you wonder, is the price too high or is the red tape just that thick? Wally, what's your take on this?
I'm also very surprised that the number of issued visas is just one, or green cards rather, is just one. When if you remember, when the sales and marketing team of the Trump administration were talking about this card, it's meant, like you said, it's meant to be a faster process. So 1 year in and nothing. It's just one person that has gotten so far. And you still have like a lot of people on the backlog. My expectation would be that you would have a definite list of approvals and the others are disapproved, right? Either it's 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever. You have like this number of people have been approved, this other number of people have been disapproved, and then we are expecting more application for the gold card. So that's the kind of response I would expect. But from what I read, for what the Trump administration is saying, is that like they are careful with the process. They are doing extreme, more or less like an extreme vetting process to make sure that they get it right. So what would be the difference between doing that and you just going for a regular application? Apart from maybe the backlog that is there, even right now, even considering the backlog, what's the difference between you paying $1 million, you are still waiting, and someone who applied normally and they're also still waiting? All of you are still waiting together.
Exactly. What's the point? After paying $1 million, you will expect some express service. You will expect, direct green card, not you have to go through EB1. And there've been also lawsuits about the decision on the president's side, because there's several people who are against it because they also feel like it does not offer a fair playing ground for everyone who qualifies for EB1 or EB2. So it's like a pay to play. If you have money, you get entry to America. If you don't have money, you're kicked to the curb. But that's not what America stands for. And so, I mean, we'll wait to see what happens in the future, or, in the nearest future with regards to the gold card. Because if after, almost over 6 months going to a year, we're here without any concrete, turnaround, then it's questionable, right?
It's interesting to say the least.
Yeah. All right, then. Now let's look at the dark side of the diary. We always talk about the good side. Sometimes we like to talk about the bad side, just so that we are fair in our stories. Moving on, federal jury has found Lesbia Nolasco, 49-year-old Colombian woman in Orlando, guilty of passport fraud, theft of government property, aggravated identity theft, and making a false statement to a federal agency. Nolasco faces a maximum of 10 years in federal prison for passport fraud and theft of government property, up to 5 years for making a false statement to a federal agency, and a mandatory minimum of 2 years imprisonment consecutive to any other prison terms for aggravated identity theft. A sentencing hearing is scheduled for July 21st, 2026, according to the US government.
This is crazy. And for me, it's crazy because she's 49. And if you read into the article, the crime started 30 years ago, at least 30 years ago. That means she started as a teenager, basically.
Exactly. From 39, 19. So she started at 19. She's been committed, like, all those years was
crazy.
wasted.
Crazy. And then I think she had become so, I'm not sure whether it's confidence, whether it's delusion, or whether it's, I don't know what it is. To the extent that she went to go and apply for American passport. So she had an identity that she had been using falsely. She now decided, okay, fine, I want to start traveling all over the world under a false identity, and went to go and apply for an American passport. For me, I don't know.
You see, what blows my mind about when I hear stories like this is the fact that even though it seems like the American system is porous in some ways, it is not entirely true, because somewhere, someday, at some time, somebody's going to investigate and will find you out. Because that's what 30 years mean. This lady has been committing crimes, using people's identity, government resources for 30 years. Do you get? There's always a trail. So there's always going to be trail. And it only takes one of the agencies to pick it up and say, you know what, I'm going to run with this and see how far this leads. And that's why people like her are picked up. Some people are just maybe committing, they're starting small. So they think, they can get away with it and you just start, building confidence and keep and just start going for bigger deals and committing more crimes and getting away with it and thinking they are free and you're just going to keep doing it. And in all of this, they're leaving trail behind. They are leaving trail behind.
It's crazy, and I think the challenge. I think with her especially, someone must have noticed something wrong with the application process somewhere. So they reviewed it, then they asked her for her birth certificate, which she didn't have, and then the identity of the woman that she claims is Puerto Rican. And as you know, Puerto Rican is a U.S. territory. That means they are also U.S. Nationals. Then I started asking her about Puerto Rico, about the city, the state. If you live in Puerto Rico up until like 18, at least you should be able to know something and that is going on there, right? So that was how they were able to start narrowing down that all the lies that she decided to make. But then again, like for me, I think it's just it just shows how much confidence people who are committing fraud or criminals generally, how much confidence they have. And I don't know how they do it, but
They do it.
for me it's
They
very
got
surprising.
confident. They do it. It's wild then. All right.
Yeah.
The US authorities have launched a manhunt for Emmanuella Hall, a 45-year-old Nigerian national who failed to report to prison to begin an 8-year sentence for her role in a romance fraud scheme. Prosecutors said Hall, a permanent resident in Atlanta, Georgia, was sentenced in January 2026 after pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud, as well as money laundering. She was ordered to surrender. She took off.
Again, like it's one of those things that you are in the US as a green card holder, and you're already a step ahead of many people already on the line.
Globally, not just globally.
And
she's a permanent resident.
Why would you go and commit this kind of fraud? I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. And is it? I don't know. I can understand it, but she apparently the authority said she worked with some people. Obviously, usually in romance fraud and scamming, you usually have a group of people that are working together to scam, and they were posing as wealthy figures such as military officers and entrepreneurs on social media. And then I didn't go into detail about how they went into it, but again, why would you be posing as a military figure? So you're posing as a military personnel. I'm not sure which military personnel she posed, whether it's Nigerian or American. So you now want the military to just look at you and let you be, and then you think there won't be any consequence. For me, it doesn't make sense. But it's just one of those things that I see. You start to see the level at which people are taking crime to, and you start to understand a lot of the reasons. At least you have a good understanding of why the Trump administration is trying to look into a lot of people that have green cards. At least this is one of them. Yeah, of course, there is a negative aspect, but this is one of the positive aspects too.
Fair enough, Wally. And she's gonna when she's caught, she just increased her sentence her time in prison.
Exactly.
That's what she had just done.
So she's just committing crime upon crime upon crime.
Yeah, she's done for. Speaking of which, 22 Sri Lankan monks returning from Thailand were arrested on Sunday at the main international airport in Sri Lanka with a record 242 pounds of powerful cannabis, according to the officials. A Sri Lankan customs spokesman said the group returning home after a 4-day vacation in the Thai city had Kush, a potent strain of cannabis hidden in their luggage. Monks, Wally.
Yeah, I honestly, when I heard this story, when I read this story, rather, I couldn't believe monks get high too. So apparently,
240 is a lot. Like, are they moving it? Like, oh man, that's
a good question.
Are highly regarded.
I would assume that they are using it themselves, but now that you say maybe they are trying to act as mules, that would make sense. they will get some money when they get paid, when they get back to Sri Lanka. And again, you have to think about the economy in Sri Lanka. You have to think about yeah, even being a monk in Sri Lanka is even hard. The economy is tough on a lot of people. Being a monk is even harder. And I can see their law. Like if they tell them, if you take this, you just get paid. You're a monk. Nobody's going to suspect you, and they think it's a good deal. And if you imagine like there is a group of them, and one person already say yes, they've convinced another group of another two other three other people. They start convincing each other, but I don't know how they managed to convince 22 people to do this kind of crime. But that person must be a great salesperson. I would say that.
Monks. I mean, if you ask me, I would think maybe they are being blackmailed. No, I don't want to use blackmail. Maybe they are not aware. Maybe some of them are not aware because it takes a lot to convince 22 monks, not just any group of people, monks
Yeah,
who have dedicated their life in a very unique way to move, cannabis, of 242 pounds. So I don't know if they are, I'm not sure what it is. I hope to,
it's possible. Actually, that's also a possibility. Like if I read from the story, it says that they're also young, so they're probably in their low 20s or something like that, or even maybe yeah, late teens. So it's possible that they might be naive about what's going on in these kinds of international travel.
yeah.
They did say that like the drugs, or the kush was found in hidden compartments in the luggage. So I can't. For me, it's very difficult for people that have dedicated their life to a religion for so many years, that they now start hiding. All of them start hiding cannabis
Yes,
in
yeah.
the
There's more
somewhere
to the
in their
story that we
luggage.
have not been told, though. Yeah.
Yeah, so they are still investigating. We'll see how that goes, but there's a lot of possibilities with this. But then again, like, how do you? That is one of the I would say one thing that I was lucky to have when I the first time I traveled out of the country, was I had a lot of friends that had traveled all over the world, and I went them and I asked them about different kind of things about traveling, what to expect. And one of the most important things that I got is that never, ever, ever leave your luggage with someone else. Never, ever, ever accept a luggage from someone else at the airport. Oh, those are the two things, just those two things. Never ever do that, because these criminals they don't care about you. They don't care about humanity. They don't care if you are rot in jail for the rest of your life. People will always try to use other people to move drugs at the airport. So that's one thing that I stuck to my mind early on when I was traveling. And from then on, I always do it. Even there are different situations where someone will say, "Oh, I'm going to the bathroom. Can you wash my luggage?" I'll just say, "Okay, fine. I'm going to sit over there, but I can keep an eye." So, if when you come out, your luggage will be there. I'm not going to be anywhere close to that luggage. So it is something that we need to be, especially if you're young. You need to be vigilant. Unfortunately, young people might not know a lot of things, but if you have someone around you, ask them questions about traveling, and what you can be aware of to be safe and not be in this kind of mess. If indeed the drugs were planted on this.
Yeah, fair enough, Wally. Anyways, from the accidental Canadians to the holy smugglers, this is the diary for today. But this is also to show that the immigrant experience is not one size fits all. Please like and subscribe and join us in the next episode.
Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye now.